Have you ever watched someone with less experience receive the opportunity you were hoping for? It happens more often than you think, not because they are more qualified, but because they are more recognizable. Today, I'm going to share the 5 questions every leader should answer before building a personal brand. These 5 principles have guided my work for more than 30 years and will help you build a brand that reflects the strength of your leadership. Do you want to fully step into your calling and live out your God-inspired vision, but lack the right people and resources to help you? Hi, I'm Nicole Pride, personal branding strategist, leadership coach, and Christian. I learned the secret to advancing big leadership goals and attracting new opportunities is through intentionally elevating your personal brand. If you're ready to step into greater impact without losing your peace, then grab a protein bar, your iPad, and let's go. So look, I am so glad you decided to check out today's episode. I truly believe in leaders just like you who have accomplished so much and desire to do even more. My mission is to help you realize your mega God-sized vision primarily through executive coaching, personal branding, and strategic communications. If you would like one-to-one coaching and a tailored strategy, I would be happy to conduct a brand strength audit to help you identify where your personal brand is underperforming and give you a plan to help your brand work harder for you, so your reputation begins to prime the room for opportunity before you even enter. Schedule a session with me at NicolePride.com/contact. I am so excited. I can barely contain myself. I know what I am about to share will be game-changing for some of you. And for the rest of you, these tips will help you strengthen your leadership and elevate your brand. One question has fascinated me throughout my career. Why do some leaders consistently attract opportunities, resources, and support, while others who are just as capable remain overlooked? After advising leaders for more than 3 decades, I have concluded that most people build their personal brands backwards. They focus on visibility before clarity, promotion before purpose, recognition before identity, but a strong personal brand does not begin with being known. No, it begins with knowing the answers to 5 questions. Who, what, when, where, and why. I know it sounds very basic. I know it may even seem elementary, but these are critical points that you must answer to build a lasting, strong foundation for your personal brand. So today I want to walk you through each one. I believe they will change the way you think about leadership and personal branding. The first one, who? Who is it that you want to reach? Whether you want to advance your career, grow your business, or implement a major initiative, there are people you want to engage to reach to your next level. That means you have to speak to that audience in such a way that they hear you. And in most cases, people only hear you when you speak to them about them. You need to identify the people who have an interest in partnering with you on your journey. They share your values, support a similar mission, or want the services or products that you offer. If you select the right audience, it becomes an easy decision for them to support you. But first, they have to hear you. And to get their attention, they have to feel seen. So let me share this example with you. To make this concept easy to grasp, let's just say you need to gain the support of flowers. I know it sounds funny. But flowers to help you accomplish your next initiative, secure your next leadership role, or advance some grand vision that you have. Flowers. Yes, flowers. So, for example, If your social media posts, op-ed pieces, blog posts, and YouTube videos simply spoke to flowers in general, you're not going to gain many supporters. Why? Because it is too general. However, if you started speaking specifically to flowers that need a lot of sunlight to grow, now you've made maybe 50% of the flower population pause because they heard content that speaks directly to them. Next, all of your content begins referencing yellow flowers that need full sunlight to grow. Now the yellow flowers are saying to themselves, well, that's me. So let's take it a step further. Now you begin sharing news articles and participating in podcast interviews that provide information on how to care for flowers in the Southwest, where the climate is dry and arid. Now the yellow flowers living in New Mexico, let's say, are starting to perk up. You got them to stop scrolling because your content is becoming more relevant to them. Let's go even deeper. Now you are talking specifically to yellow flowers in New Mexico with 2 missing petals. They are saying, wow, I feel seen. You understand my needs unlike many other experts, and I want to follow you for more content. Shall we take this example one step further? Now your master classes are addressing yellow flowers in New Mexico with 2 missing petals that were nibbled off by a rabbit. Not flowers that grew with some type of deformity, not flowers damaged by extreme weather, flowers whose petals were nibbled off by a hungry rabbit. Now, these flowers are saying, sign me up for whatever you're offering because you understand me. You are familiar with my challenges and we can relate to each other. People support leaders who make them feel seen. This is exactly what happens when you clearly identify who you're called to serve. You see, most people, they don't get this specific and intentional when they're creating content for several reasons. Some think it makes the pool of voters, supporters, customers, advocates, and potential partners smaller. I believe, quite frankly, the opposite. This is what separates those who are simply public for ego's sake from leaders with a mission who want to galvanize others, who want to build partnerships, who want to create impact and leave a legacy. You see, you lead first with those who you are called to lead. You serve those you are ordained to serve. You speak to those you are instructed to address. Leadership becomes more effective when the right people know you are speaking directly to them. If it makes you feel better, know that you will absolutely attract people outside your target audience. Using this example with the flowers, as you talk about dry and arid climates, all the other flowers in that region, they're going to find value in your discussions about irrigation systems and cultivating nutrient-rich soil. Flowers with missing petals caused by other predators will benefit from your discussion about living after the trauma of an animal attack. But you are called to focus on a select group. Never compromise your content or water down your message in an attempt to reach a broader audience, because you'll end up just speaking to no one and you won't help anyone. So if you're struggling to identify your audience, ask yourself these questions. Who naturally benefits from my leadership? Who do I genuinely enjoy serving? What group of people do I understand better than most because of my own experiences? Whose challenges am I uniquely equipped to help solve? And when people seek my advice, what do they consistently come to me for? You see, the clearer you become about who you are called to serve, the easier it becomes for the right people to recognize your leadership. Principle number 2, the what. What is the value you have to offer? So this is why you need a firm grasp of your audience. When you know your audience and you are aligned with your audience, you offer them something they truly value. So for example, let's say you are aggressively promoting your new political campaign, operational process, or community initiative, perhaps some premium service or product that you passionately believe you will help your audience with. Let's say the value of what you are offering is worth $2,000 in savings, right? So for some people and organizations, $2,000 in savings has a significant impact on their budget. To them, the perceived value is much greater. It is as though you're giving them like $20,000, $200,000, or even $2 million, right? On the opposite end of the spectrum, promoting $2,000 in savings is almost humorous because the perceived value is the equivalent to $200, $20, $2, or maybe even 20 cents. The value did not change, the audience did. You need to accurately articulate your value to your audience. The same concept applies to non-monetary situations, right? So some of you are positioning yourselves as the candidate for change, but your audience wants tradition and consistency. Some of you are promoting your ability to bring organization and structure, while the audience you have been speaking to prefers a spontaneous, empathetic leadership style that adjusts in real time. You need to be attuned to what your audience values. When there is a significant misalignment or shift in perspectives, you have to determine whether the people you have been speaking to should really be your target audience. When you discover fundamental differences, you have to decide whether there is another audience with greater alignment and greater synergy. Because when your audience values what you naturally do well, your leadership becomes easier to understand and your impact becomes greater. So, how do you determine whether your value aligns with your audience? You ask questions. You listen carefully. You observe what problems people repeatedly ask you to solve. You pay attention to what they thank you for. Notice where your experience consistently meets someone else's need. This is where focus groups, surveys, polls, listening tours, and one-on-one conversations become valuable assessment tools. Sometimes the greatest insight comes from simply asking your audience. What is the biggest challenge you're trying to solve right now? Is one question as an example. The better you understand what they value, the better you can communicate the value you bring. Okay, when. Principle number 3 is about when. When you have leadership seasons that sit at opposite ends of the spectrum, getting the timing wrong can have significant consequences. Leading the wrong way in the right season can totally undermine your vision. So this reminds me of Ecclesiastes 3, it's a scripture in the Bible. Listen to what the New Living Translation says. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. So that was, again, Ecclesiastes 3, and it was verses 1 through 8 and 11. So here is the promise of getting it right. God has made everything beautiful for its own time. I love this verse because it really describes how it is important to be in God's timing. And because, as this scripture described, these seasons are totally opposite. And so that means if you get your timing wrong, if you are taking time to build your business, but you really should be dissolving it, those are totally different things, and you have the potential not to have the impact that you were created for. So I love the promise again that it reminds us that God is not just interested in the destination, God is equally concerned about the timing. Great leadership is not just knowing what to do, it is discerning when to do it. For ambitious leaders like us, this is where we need extra counsel and accountability, a decision matrix, and most importantly, we need prayer, a lot of prayer, so that we do not get ahead of the process and we do not get ahead of God. And that is the real struggle. The struggle is real, and it's something that I battled with. I believe this is one of the greatest struggles ambitious leaders face. Many of us create unnecessary tension because we do not slow down long enough to receive God's direction. As I've been building my business, there came a point when contracts ended, projects wrapped up, and there was not enough in the pipeline behind them. My first instinct was to work harder. So I built systems. I improved processes. I invested in automation. None of those things were wrong. In fact, they increased my capacity. But after stepping back, I realized something. I was still building infrastructure when my business needed demand. I was focused on the right activity, but in the wrong season. That was a leadership lesson. Sometimes the greatest challenge is not knowing what to do. It is discerning what your leadership requires in this season. As leaders, we can spend so much time strengthening one area that we neglect what is most needed right now. That is why timing matters. So this year, I've been meditating on Proverbs 19:21. It says, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. And that's the New Living Translation. I have to constantly remind myself that although I have natural leadership qualities, I must still submit to God. That means slowing down enough to acknowledge His direction and defer to God's leading. If you're anything like me, the moment you get a glimpse of what God may be doing in your life, you want to run full speed ahead. But sometimes God is only giving us the next direction. Let's say the vision is for me to take a trip that is a few states away. God tells me to turn off my street, but I take that to mean I should already be halfway out of the state. And that is the problem. Keeping Proverbs 19:21 in front of me reminds me that God may have a different plan than mine. What I am assigned to do today may simply be preparation for what He has planned tomorrow. So leadership, it requires ambition, but wisdom requires surrender. When we trust God's timing, we give God room to make everything beautiful in God's time. And I know that's easier said than practicing, and it's something that I have to work on every day. All right, principle number 4, where. Determining where is the best place to engage with your audience is absolutely critical. What role or position allows you to best serve? What physical or digital location is best for your leadership and your audience? Having a firm grasp of where you will be found and where you will go to serve is key to your leadership impact. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make today is believing they have to be everywhere. You do not. Your goal is not to become known by everyone. Your goal is to become known by the right people. Strategic leadership requires strategic presence. When you try to be everywhere, you usually end up showing up inconsistently everywhere. Instead, identify the places where your audience naturally gathers and become known there. Consistency builds recognition, recognition builds trust, and trust creates opportunities for greater influence. For more practical strategies, listen to episode 7. It was called Ambition Alone Won't Lead to Career Growth. You need these 3 leadership qualities, and there I shared ways you can intentionally connect with your key audiences. So for example, I use this podcast as a primary way to connect with ambitious senior leaders like yourself for 3 primary reasons. In today's digital world, my audience values a personal connection, deeper conversations, and practical insights that support both their personal and professional growth. I could invest more of my time on some other platforms. However, I believe this is where I can best serve you. A podcast creates the space for thoughtful conversations that simply just can't happen in a 60-second video or a social media post. For me, this is where I believe my leadership can have the greatest impact. It makes sense for me to be here with my community in this way. As you think about your own leadership, ask yourself, where does my audience naturally gather? Where am I most effective? Where can I consistently show up and provide value? Where does my leadership have the greatest opportunities to make an impact? You don't have to be everywhere. You simply have to faithfully show up where God has called you to serve. And principle number 5, our final principle, is the why. It all hinges on this one principle. You have to know why you are leading. Understanding your why gives you clarity, and that clarity just drives all future decisions. I believe it is an absolute tragedy when capable leaders abandon the vision they once articulated, not because it was wrong, but because lack of progress slowly talked them out of it. Over time, they begin to give up. They lower their ambition. They compromise their dream. What they eventually achieve barely resembles the vision they once had. It is not because God had other plans. It's because they stopped believing. That is my why. My why is not about everyone should want more, bigger is better, or ambition is superior. My why is vision matters. Settling due to confusion is totally unnecessary, and capable leaders need clarity before they compromise their calling. I'm driven by those beliefs. I work with senior leaders like you because you gain clarity and momentum, and the impact of your leadership extends far beyond yourself. It is not about perceived importance. I am called to serve you because you are already responsible for others. You already shape outcomes. You already influence trajectories. When you lead with greater clarity, the people you serve benefit from your leadership. By helping you see more clarity and move more confidently, I am honoring my why at scale. Your why is rarely found on the surface. It is uncovered by examining the beliefs, the experiences, and convictions that continue to move you forward. As you reflect, consider these questions. What burden or problem do you feel compelled to solve? What breaks your heart when you see it in your organization, community, or industry? What do you hope will be different because you chose to lead? If success were guaranteed, what vision would you pursue? What belief keeps you moving forward when progress is slow? Whose lives are better because you lead? What would the people you serve lose if you settled for less than your calling? When you experience setbacks, what reminds you that your work still matters? And at the end of your career, what do you hope people say your leadership made possible? Your answers will not simply reveal your motivation, they will reveal your why. So look, today we covered a lot. We talked about who you're called to serve, what value you bring, when to move, where to show up, and ultimately, why you lead. None of these principles stand alone. They work together because when you have clarity about who you serve, what value you bring, when to move, where to engage, and why to lead, your personal brand becomes the natural expression of your leadership. You no longer have to imitate what other people are doing. You no longer have to chase every trend. You simply become more intentional about showing up as the leader God has already called you to be. A strong personal brand is not something you create. It is something you consistently reveal about yourself. And remember, your personal brand should never become a performance. It should become the natural expression of your leadership. Hey, ambitious leader, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share with another leader who you want to encourage? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I just get so energized to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, I'm going to take one step today to let my leadership shine. What about you? God willing, meet you back next week for another episode.